Today on the Matt Walsh Show, Kamala Harris's new running mate seems to be guilty of stolen valor. That's a sin that Americans across the political spectrum universally condemn. So how did this guy end up on the ticket? And will it sink Kamala's presidential campaign? We'll discuss. Also, Tim Walz goes to a church that teaches God is non-binary and encourages its congregants to celebrate Ramadan. What does that tell us about the kind of guy he is? And 3 black women won gold, silver, and bronze in gymnastics at the Olympics. But did they actually earn the medals, or has this become the DEI Olympics? We'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Daily Wire Plus members have unlimited on-demand access to our uncensored, ad-free daily shows, real-time breaking news, and investigative journalism. Don't be left in the dark. Join us in the fight right now at dailywire.com/subscribe. Going online without ExpressVPN, it's like driving without car insurance. You might be a great driver, but with all the crazy people on the road these days, why would you take the risk? Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, like in a cafe, a hotel, an airport, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can access and steal your personal data, things like passwords, bank logins, and credit card details. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. All you need is some cheap hardware. A 12-year-old with access to YouTube could do it, and they could make a pretty penny selling your personal data on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. Sounds complicated, but one of the reasons I love ExpressVPN is that actually it's so easy to use. All you got to do, fire up the app, click one button to get protected. Plus, it works on all my family's devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more. Like driving a car without car insurance, why would you log into your bank account on public Wi-Fi without using ExpressVPN? Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/Walsh. That's expressvpn.com/Walsh, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/Walsh. Well, it's been just about 48 hours since Kamala Harris announced that Tim Walz will be the running mate for her on the ticket. And in that time, it's already become very clear how Walz has enjoyed such a successful political career in Minnesota. It's not because he's achieved anything notable for people living in the state, aside from making major cities far more dangerous. It's not because he's especially charismatic or intelligent or compelling to listen to. Walz is none of those things. Tim Walz is the governor of Minnesota because the local media, under orders from the state's political machine, protected him for nearly 2 decades. They created a false persona, Tim Walz, the war hero turned folksy teacher, and shut down any attempt to scrutinize his background. Specifically, the media buried evidence that Walz is a fraudster who has repeatedly and openly lied about his military service, maybe the one moral infraction that Americans still universally condemn, regardless of party, is the one that he has apparently committed. But Walz is on the national stage now, which means he's receiving a lot more scrutiny from people who actually care about the truth. And it doesn't appear that Walz's allies or Kamala Harris's campaign were remotely ready for this scrutiny, because with each passing day, they're inadvertently providing even more evidence that Walz is guilty of stolen valor. For instance, this is a video that Kamala Harris's official campaign account uploaded themselves on social media the other day. It shows Walz speaking about his opposition to gun rights, and listen to how he frames it. Here it is.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Now, the fact that this video was uploaded by Kamala Harris's team tells you the extent of their vetting and their competence. They just uploaded footage of their VP lying about his military service, apparently without even realizing it. Now, in that clip, Walz says that he carried weapons of war while he was serving in the war. But Walz never gets around to saying what war he was serving in, because there wasn't one. He deployed to Italy with the Minnesota National Guard, and this was long after World War II ended, so Italy was not a combat zone at the time that he was there. There was no war in Italy. Therefore, he never carried a weapon of war in war. He's lying pretty flagrantly about his military service. Now, Walz's defenders will try to parse what he said very carefully and suggest that, well, he wasn't really, he wasn't claiming that he was in a combat zone. He was referring to the global war on terror. And it's the global, so anywhere on the globe, technically he's in the war. And they'll suggest that Walz carried rifles as part of that effort, maybe in training or maybe while he was at some guard post at an airfield somewhere. So therefore, they'll say his statement is technically accurate. This is obviously a very strained attempt to change the clear meaning and implication of what Walz said. There's no reasonable person who would say that, he was carrying a weapon in war if he was sitting around a non-combat post in Italy. Now, Walz and his defenders have specifically gone to great lengths to associate him with Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan in a way that's as misleading as possible. Alpha News reports that on his gubernatorial campaign website in 2018, Walz's biography stated, quote, he joined his battalion overseas in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Now, that's somewhat close to the truth, but it's deliberately misleading because it doesn't clarify exactly where Walz was stationed. Even more egregious, the Washington Free Beacon reports that in 2006, Walz's campaign announcement described him as a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. And during the 2004 presidential race, Walz also held a sign that read, Operation Enduring Freedom Veterans for Kerry. It was purposefully misleading at best. It was all clearly designed to create the impression that Walz had served in a combat role in Afghanistan when he hadn't. But Walz kept saying it. Also in 2004, as Jordan Schachel reported yesterday on his Substack, the Bloomberg reporter Joshua Green, who was then employed by The Atlantic, repeated this lie. Green wrote that Walz had left his hometown, quote, to serve overseas in Operation Enduring Freedom. At points, the implication was even more explicit. In the Atlantic profile, Green states that Walz was a command sergeant major who just returned from fighting the war on terrorism. And this alleged service, Green says, is why Walz was chosen by Democrat Party elites for a career in politics. Green writes that these operatives were looking for, quote, veterans from wars in Afghanistan and Iraq when they stumbled on Walz. Now, it's obvious that Walz fed lies to this reporter and to the public going back 2 decades in order to portray himself as a war hero. But he was not a war hero. He was a coward who abandoned his unit, abandoned his own National Guard unit. The moment he learned that his battalion was going to go to Iraq while his congressional run was underway, Walz quit. In a March 2005 press release, Walz claimed, quote, I don't want to speculate on what shape my campaign will take if I'm deployed, but I have no plans to drop out of the race. He said his wife will be a major part of his campaign, quote, whether I'm in Minnesota or Iraq. And Walz's press release concluded, quote, if called to duty, Walz would leave behind his wife, Gwen, and 4-year-old daughter, Hope. But Walz avoided that situation just by quitting the National Guard. Walz was a command sergeant major at the time that he quit, and that's a rank he accepted, knowing that it came with responsibilities, but Walz didn't meet those responsibilities, so he was demoted after he left the military. But Walz kept on referring to himself as a command sergeant major anyway, which is yet another instance of stolen valor. It's like someone who wears a Ranger tab because they were selected for Ranger school and then failed. I mean, it's a lie. It's just not true. As Just the News reports, quote, the Minnesota National Guard confirmed Wednesday that Governor Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's vice presidential running mate, was demoted and did not retire as a command sergeant major like he has claimed for years, including on his official gubernatorial biography. While Walz temporarily held the title of Command Sergeant Major, he retired as a Master Sergeant in 2005 for benefit purposes because he did not complete additional coursework at the U.S. Army Sergeants Major Academy, according to Army Lieutenant Colonel Kristen Ogue, the Minnesota National Guard State Public Affairs Officer. Now, separately, Alpha News spoke to Tom Behrens, the actual retired Command Sergeant Major who replaced Walz, and here's his assessment of Walz and his cowardice and deception. Listen.
He's back again to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Barron's new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier when Barron says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018. So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, this guy quit. And if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that?
A spokesperson for the Minnesota National Guard said Walz wasn't able to retire as a command sergeant major since he failed to complete coursework and requirements related to the rank. Verified documents show the Army corrected his service record. Walz was reduced in rank to an E8 Master Sergeant after retirement and his conditional promotion.
Now, there are a lot of people who served in Walz's same National Guard unit who feel the same way that he does. J.R. Salzman, for example, tweeted this picture along with the caption, "Here I am on our Iraq deployment with the Minnesota Army National Guard, the very same deployment Tim Walz bailed on." Salzman added, quote, "I served in the Minnesota National Guard with him. He literally abandoned us when we were about to be deployed to Iraq. He's a coward and should be treated as such." Now, what's remarkable about Walz's lies is that he does it so often that his own allies are the ones outing him, albeit inadvertently, of course. For example, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy just uploaded this photo of Walz and Josh Shapiro, and the intent was to show that, they get along and everything is great. But Walz's hat stuck out to a lot of veterans because it shows the Special Forces crest. It's a hat that Walz wears a lot, even though he was never in the Special Forces. And by itself, you might argue that, it's not a big deal, but if you put it together with all the lies that Walz has told about his military record, it starts to paint a picture of a narcissist who enjoys portraying himself as an accomplished veteran when he's really a coward who's hated by the people that he served with and later abandoned. Now, at this point, you have to wonder whether Americans will tolerate all of this for very long. It's truly a test of how low the bar is in the Democrat Party if they keep Tim Walz on as their nominee. And from what we're hearing, this is just the beginning. More and more examples of Walz's stolen valor will come out, and it's pretty ironic given that when he was in Congress, Walz voted yes on the Stolen Valor Act, which makes it illegal to falsely claim military service to obtain some benefit. In other words, Tim Walz may have violated the very law that he passed himself against stolen valor. In 2009, an Iraq war veteran named David Thule confronted Tim Walz's staff about this. So this has, again, been an issue for a long time. It's been known about for a long time. He brought the photo of Walz identifying as an Operation Enduring Freedom veteran, and the staffer admits that Walz had tricked some people into thinking that he served in Afghanistan. Watch.
My name is Dave Thule. This is Travis Quinlan. We're both constituents and Iraq war vets. We're hoping to talk to someone about the photograph I have of Congressman Walz.
Okay.
Not sure if you have ever seen this picture before?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, in it depicts 2004 Afghanistan veteran.
Right.
Congressman Walz is not an Afghanistan war veteran, is he?
He served in Italy as part of Operation Enduring Freedom.
Okay, but he didn't serve in Afghanistan, did he?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Hi, Rick. I'm Dave Thule. How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
There's a young lady in the other office that was helping us, but if you can.
You guys want to come in and have a seat?
Sure, thank you. My concern, other than this picture, is that the congressman's website, his official biography, says simply that he was mobilized with his battalion in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Without any other details, don't you think it's reasonable people might assume that means he served in Afghanistan?
Perhaps, I guess.
Okay. So it's been 5 years now, or I guess almost 5 years, that the congressman's official biography has said he served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Isn't it reasonable if it causes confusion, or it may cause confusion, that somebody may have thought to change that and explain that he served in Italy and not in Afghanistan?
I mean, what would you suggest it be changed to, I guess?
Okay.
Simply to add the words.
So the conversation goes on for a while. The staffer acknowledges that people were being misled about Walz's biography, but apparently nobody in Walz's office changed it. And according to the Free Beacon, the staff took no action to correct Walz's bio after this confrontation. So it's kind of an incredible video. And incredible, again, that this is back in 2009. So this has been known for a long time. And Kamala Harris and her team would have obviously known about all this. At the moment, there appears to be some creeping realization in the Harris campaign about how bad all this is. Yesterday, Walz was asked about his military record, and he quickly ran away. Watch.
Governor, fans accuse you of stolen valor. Your response? Governor!
Try again.
Governor, fans accuse you of stolen valor. Your response?
So no response there. So Walz's strategy is the same as Harris's. He'll just avoid answering any questions. He'll count on the media to cover for him, as they did for 20 years in Minnesota. But there are signs that that strategy may not work perfectly. Even CNN is now pointing out Walz's history of fraud. Watch.
Walz did make a comment, speaking to a group, he's done it a couple of times, where he has used language that has suggested that he carried weapons in a fighting situation. As you know, with your contact with the military, I know from coming from a military family, there is a difference between being in a combat area, being involved at a time of war, and actually being in a position where people are shooting at you. There is no evidence that at any time Governor Walz was in a position of being shot at, and some of his language could easily be seen to suggest that he was. So that is absolutely false when he said that about gun rights out there.
So there was some opposition research on Josh Shapiro that surfaced over the past week or so. He may have covered up a homicide by ruling it a suicide in order to help a friend. That was one allegation anyway. And he may have swept a sexual harassment claim under the rug too. That was another allegation. The truth is that in the modern political landscape, none of those alleged sins really count as disqualifying anymore. Josh Shapiro could have survived them. Politicians survive stuff like that all the time. But there are very real questions about whether Tim Walz can survive this. Stolen valor is the one moral infraction that nobody tolerates. It repulses all reasonable people at a fundamental level. And somehow Tim Walz survived Kamala Harris' supposedly rigorous vetting process, despite lying repeatedly about his military record. As damning as this is for Tim Walz, it's also a massive indictment of Kamala Harris. Because picking Tim Walz to be your vice president was the first major decision that Kamala Harris has made since stealing the nomination. And so what that means is that when she was finally left to her own devices to do something on her own, something the media isn't doing for her, she immediately flopped on her face. For all of her campaign's contrived attacks on Donald Trump for supposedly maligning the military and all this stuff, Kamala Harris has managed to pick a running mate who, by his own actions, demonstrated very clearly that he thinks military service members are suckers. He'll leave them behind in an instant, and then he'll lie about it for decades, brazenly. If nothing else, this election of Tim Walz is a pretty clear preview of the level of absolute incompetence a Kamala Harris administration would entail. She could have chosen the governor of Pennsylvania, but instead she went with a leftist who abandoned his own National Guard unit and then repeatedly lied about it. No matter how many celebrities line up behind Kamala Harris, no matter how long she hides from the press, the truth about Tim Walz is impossible to deny. He'll continue to drag her campaign down even further with each new revelation of his stolen valor, and it will get worse. And by Election Day, millions more people will have come to a basic and obvious realization, which is that a woman who can't even manage her campaign is not capable of running the country. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. Grand Canyon University is a private Christian university located in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. GCU believes that our Creator has endowed us with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They believe in equal opportunities and that the American dream is driven by purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promote your flourishing, which will create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. Whether you're pursuing a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, Grand Canyon University's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your degree. GCU has over 330 academic programs as of September 2023. GCU will meet you where you are and provide a path to help you fulfill your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. Find your purpose today at Grand Canyon University, private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. That's gcu.edu. So Daily Caller has a little bit more information about the Democrat running mate, Tim Walz. Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz attends a church that preaches beliefs related to gender, race, and sexuality that many Christian denominations strongly oppose. Walz, who's governor of Minnesota, identified Pilgrim Lutheran Church in St. Paul as his parish during a 2020 briefing on the COVID-19 pandemic. Materials published by Pilgrim Lutheran Church instruct parishioners not to refer to God using male pronouns, push congregants to support reparation funds, encourage them to celebrate Ramadan, and include a modified gender-neutral version of the Lord's Prayer, among other liberal practices. Pilgrim Lutheran Church is part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, a mainline Protestant denomination that's been criticized by some conservative Christians for ordaining transgender and lesbian bishops, as well as for its embrace of LGBT ideology. Criticized by conservative Christians, yes, but criticized by anyone. If you're a Christian in general, then you would be critical of these sorts of things that are, because this is not Christianity, this is heresy. Pilgrim Lutheran Church in 2015 approved guidelines for language in worship, wherein the congregation asserted that a patriarchal culture gave birth to the writing of Scripture and the selection of the canon. And to rectify the purported injustice, committed to using gender-neutral language to describe God. Members of the church, for instance, are encouraged to use non-anthropomorphic language like hen or baker to refer to God, and urge not to limit these by following them with male or female pronouns. The guidelines instruct parishioners to refer to God using titles that signal actions but don't imply gender, like advocate or healer. Walz's church also uses a modified version of the Lord's Prayer, beginning with "Our guardian, our mother, our Father in heaven," instead of "Our Father who art in heaven," of course, which is the actual prayer. All right, so this is, he attends a church that, not really a church, but more of a far-left social club. One of these churches that's just like cartoonishly liberal. A church that I guarantee you is dead, by the way. Like if you went into one of these places, all of these churches are dead. If you drive by a church and you see a rainbow flag hanging outside, that tells you two things. Number one, it's not a real church. It can't be a real church. You cannot be a real church and fly a rainbow flag and subscribe to LGBT ideology. But the second thing it tells you is that the church is dead. If you went in on Sunday, you'd find like 6 people, and only old lesbians and closeted gay men attend these kinds of churches. I'm telling you, I mean that sincerely. That's just my observation. It's not even meant as an insult. It's just a fact. Probably not fair. I mean, it's not just old lesbians and closeted gay men. It's also gay men who are not closeted who go to these churches. But that's it. I mean, it's lesbian or gay over the age of 55, and that's the entire congregation at these kinds of places. So, what am I saying then about Tim Walz? Well, I'm not saying anything. I cannot officially accuse Tim Walz of being gay. I can't do that. I can't do that. I couldn't say that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he goes to a church that says God is non-binary. He's been hyper-focused on trans and gay issues during his political career. He's very passionate about making sure that little boys and girls can get gender transitions. He invited a cross-dressing man to perform at the Minnesota State Capitol. He makes sure that the boys' bathroom in 4th grade in elementary school is stocked with tampons. He was the faculty advisor in the 90s at his public school's gay club, the Gay Alliance or whatever it was. So, what does that all add up to? You do the math on that. I can't do the math. I'm not good at math. And I don't have a calculator on me, so I can't do the math. I'm just telling you what all the factors are. Oh, and Walz also shakes his wife's hand as a greeting. Do we have that? Let's play that clip. I think we have that. All right. Let's play that again. So let's make sure we saw that. The handshake. Hey, wait a second. Wait, I've been so focused on the handshake, I didn't even look to the left. Like, play it one more time. Look at Kamala Harris's husband. What was that? He has this little tremor of like disgust before he goes to kiss his wife. What? And these are the people that call us weird. It's like you can't even, you're supposed to, yeah. So you got Doug Emhoff here dancing the hokey pokey. I don't know what he's doing. Then you got these two over here shaking hands. I don't know. Very normal stuff, right? Super normal. Who greets their wife that way? Good evening, ma'am. I'm Tim Walz, your husband. Good evening. Hello, nice to see you again. How have you been? This dude got friend zoned by his own wife. How does that happen? Well, I know one way it could happen, but I'm not saying that. So between these two couples, have you ever seen married people who give off more of a we sleep in separate bedrooms vibe than these four up here? Well, Bill and Hillary, obviously. But even Bill and Hillary seemed more authentically married than Doug and Kamala or Tim and his wife. Because Bill and Hillary, they have a vibe. Like, the vibe is that they hate each other. Which is, I mean, that's not the healthiest marital dynamic. Don't get me wrong. I don't recommend it. But at least there's some kind of feeling there. Like, that is there are married couples who hate each other. But these people, these two couples, like, they come off like they've never even had a conversation with each other. Have they ever even been in the same room when they're not on camera? Anyway, what are we supposed to be talking about? Oh yeah, Walz's gay church, or just church with a lot of gayness, incidentally. And there's probably no point in picking apart the specifics here and trying to refute or debunk any of the heretical beliefs of this church. I mean, this is a church where they celebrate Ramadan. They rewrote the Lord's Prayer, even though Jesus Christ himself gives us the words of the Lord's Prayer and tells us to pray it exactly as he says it. Not going to use male pronouns for God, even though that's what's in the Bible. God even, if we're supposed to respect self-identification, well, God himself self-identifies by the male pronouns. Jesus refers to God the Father as God the Father. So this is all totally unjustifiable, but these are that's why I say this is not, I don't even just mean it as like an accusation or something when I say this is not real Christianity. It just isn't. Like, it's not actually Christianity. There's nothing about it. Again, if you went to one of these churches, aside from the fact that there's nobody there and everyone is elderly and gay, what they're talking about bears no resemblance to Christianity whatsoever. The only thing that is Christian about it is that the building they go to, they call a church. And often the building, at least architecturally, will look like a church. But that's it. All right, Ben Stiller showed up for a Comics for Kamala event, and he had an interesting thought to share. Let's listen to that.
I just want to let you know I'm going to match your $150,000 donation. Everybody's got to get out and vote and donate. And she's also a historic candidate. It's going to be the first woman president. And that's incredibly exciting. And, she's Indian, she's black, she's everything. You can be more than one thing. It's incredible. I'm Jewish and Irish. I wish I was black. Every white Jewish guy wishes he was black. It's just get out there and vote and donate and like take advantage. This is such an important time right now. And this wave of energy that's happening, we got to keep going with it. So please do everything you can.
Good Lord. That's brutal. That's brutal to watch. And the funny thing is that he's trying to be extra woke, by saying that. But the woke people are just as disgusted by that kind of thing as you and me, for different reasons. But they are just as disgusted because on the woke side, right, you're supposed to say that you would never want to trade places with a black person because it's so hard to be black. That's the woke thing. You're not supposed to say I want to be black. You're supposed to say, oh, I would never want to be black because it's so hard. So to say that you wish you were black is to kind of give the game away. You're dropping the facade. And you're basically saying, like, yeah, it must be great being black in America these days. But you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to look at black people and say, oh my goodness, I can't imagine what it's like. How difficult it must be. I could never withstand the pressure of being black. I don't have the strength for it. That's the appropriate attitude on the woke side. So if you want to be woke, you should say something like, I'm not strong enough to want to be black. That's the way to thread that needle. Just Ben Stiller, future reference, that's what you say. But then, of course, over here on the normal side, you shouldn't say that you want to be black or wish that you were black because it's a pathetic, self-loathing thing to say. And this is the inevitable and quite intentional result of instilling in white people for decades that they aren't allowed to have any pride in who they are. Black people can be proud of being black. Native Americans can be proud of being Native American. Hispanic can be proud of being Hispanic. Asian of being Asian. And on and on. But whites, we're the one group that is not supposed to have any pride in who we are whatsoever. And that's the propaganda that's been relentlessly drilled into us to the point that, you know, somebody like Ben Stiller will come out and say this. But it just really is gross. It's a disgusting thing. To hate yourself that much is disgusting. And it's not even like I don't have sympathy, I don't pity you. It's a character flaw. This is a moral flaw on your end. You should feel guilty. You should feel guilty for having this kind of white guilt. You should feel bad about it. And you do feel bad, but you should feel bad about feeling bad about being white. Okay, I wanted to mention this briefly. It's not important, but I just wanted to complain about it anyway. So it's been officially announced that Maya Rudolph will come back to SNL to play Kamala Harris for this election season. She played Kamala Harris in previous skits over the past 4 years, I guess, and now she's coming back. And on Twitter, anyway, everyone's acting excited about it. The media, you know, they say that Maya Rudolph's Kamala impression is hilarious. It's iconic. It's great. It's so good. And this is one of those, I know it's a pretty minor thing, but it's another example. It's like gaslighting everybody does. And this phrase gaslighting is used way too often, but it also happens a lot. And this is one of those times. We're being gaslit. This happens with SNL stuff a lot. Some SNL skit or whatever, and it makes the rounds online. Everyone says, this is hilarious. And then you watch it, you're like, there's no way you think that's funny. It's just not funny. And Maya Rudolph's Kamala impression it's terrible. So here's let's watch this, just to show you what I mean.
Besides, Mama's got all the vaccine she needs right here. I just want to show you how good you could have had it, America. You could have had a bad The fun is back, baby. America's fun aunt. I'm also America's cool aunt. You know what? Can I win the presidency? Probably not. I don't know. Can I successfully seduce a much younger man? You better funtin' believe it.
Oh, I got this.
Joe. Let Mama go to work. I think if there's one thing we learned tonight, it's that America needs a WAP. Woman as president. I'm just going to have fun and see if I can get some viral
This is
moments.
not a good impression. Why are people pretending this is a good... That's not... You don't have her voice down. You don't have her mannerisms. You don't even have the laugh. How do you not do the laugh? I mean, that's like if you did a Trump impression and you didn't do the hand gestures. Like, that's the easiest thing to get right, and it's the thing you have to get right. But this is how lame SNL is. And the reason they're going with this impression rather than an accurate one, which is to say a funny one, is that the SNL version of Kamala, it's really all part of the pro-Kamala propaganda. So SNL has turned Kamala into this kind of fun, quirky, cool aunt, you know. It has nothing to do with her actual personality. They've just taken the name Kamala Harris and found someone who's vaguely racially similar, and they've constructed this whole other version of Kamala rather than doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is impersonating and caricaturing the real version. That's what an impersonation is supposed to be. But this is all, it is all part of the Kamala branding strategy. And I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this to this extent. Now, we know that the media in Hollywood, they've propped up many Democrat politicians in the past, so we've seen that, but we haven't seen it like this, where they have, to this point, successfully made Kamala into this sensation. She's now drawing huge crowds. I mean, she is. And yeah, there was a big crowd, I think it was in Wisconsin yesterday, and Bon Iver was performing, so she's bringing in big musical acts and that's part of the reason people are showing up. But even so, I mean, and yes, that's a big reason why they're showing up, but this is still, like, they are coming to a Kamala Harris rally, and this is all part of the game. It's all part of the hype train, and they are successful with it. They've done all of that by constructing a completely fake version of her that has no relation to the real version. Like, the real version of Kamala is boring and lame. The real version is the version that got less than 1% of the vote during a Democrat primary. Nobody was interested in her. And they've shoved that version up into the attic somewhere, and they're creating this fictional Kamala, which is mostly being done by the media in Hollywood. And it's such a pervasive, kind of all-encompassing effort to create this fake Kamala that even SNL is getting in on the action, which is a shame because there's a lot to mock there with Kamala Harris, and a good Kamala Harris impression can be really funny. So, like this, I've seen this woman all over Twitter, for example. Like, this is what a good Kamala Harris impression sounds like. Watch.
The American dream, right? That belongs to all of us. That belongs to all of us. Think about what the American dream means for a second, okay? Think about that. Community, diversity, air rights, foreclosures, crime. It's really what the Americans dream to see. And I'll tell you a little, quick little story. My mother used to tell me that, I had the best laugh. I really did. And hopefully we'll hear it for 4 more years.
So that's a great impression. She's got the voice, the expressions, even the facial expressions, the mannerisms, the laugh. That's, I'm going to butcher her name, but Estee Palti, Esteepalti. Look her up on YouTube. I'm not her agent or anything, but this is the person you should hire at SNL. And I don't want to speak for her, but I'm betting she would even take like half of what you're going to pay Maya Rudolph to do the job. I haven't talked to her. I shouldn't speak for her, but I'm guessing she would. I'll take half of what you'll pay Maya Rudolph, and I'll do Kamala Harris. And my impression will be just as good as Maya Rudolph's. All right. Finally, the left is having some fun with this one. ABC reports, in the hours after Vice President Kamala Harris announced Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, allies of former President Donald Trump rushed to denigrate the Minnesota Democrat, seizing on criticism of his handling of the riots in the wake of George Floyd's murder in May 2020. Senator J.D. Vance said he allowed rioters to burn down the streets of Minneapolis, which is true. But at the time, ABC reports, Trump expressed support for Walz's handling of the protests, according to a recording of a phone call obtained by ABC News, telling a group of governors that Walz dominated and praising his leadership as an example for other states to follow. Trump told a group of governors on June 1st, 2020, in a call there's a recording of the call, so he did say this. He said, I know Governor Walz is on the phone and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. I was very happy with the last couple of days, Tim. He continued, you called up big numbers, and the big numbers knocked them out so fast it was like bowling pins. Now, so this is, the media's making a big deal about this yesterday, and this is supposed to delegitimize all of the criticism of Tim Walz's response to the BLM riots, the fact that Trump, back in June of 2020, was complimenting Tim Walz. Now, the Trump camp response to this has been to point out, I think accurately, that he was complimenting Walz on his response after his initial failure. And you can hear that in the recording. He says, I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. And then he says again, I was very happy with the last couple of days, Tim. So their kind of response here is quite plausible and I think correct, that Trump was referring to the last couple of days. He specifies that multiple times in the call. Now, even with that specified, like, is it great that there's a recording of Trump saying this to Tim Walz? No, it's not great. And was it true then? Like, was it true on June 1st of 2020, was it true that for the last couple of days, Tim Walz's response had been great? No, Tim Walz's response was never great. Not for the last couple of days, not for any of the days while this was going on. His response was terrible the whole time. And so does that let him off the hook? If Trump was much nicer and more complimentary than he should have been, does that mean that the criticism against Tim Walz is no longer legitimate? No. And this is also one of the good things about, being a conservative who you have a mind of your own and you're not going to automatically take whatever position Trump happens to take. Those of us in that camp, this doesn't change my opinion at all of Tim Walz's response. Trump said it was good for the last couple of days. Trump was wrong. He was just wrong. It was a terrible response the whole time. And so this is not like Tim Walz off the hook. Why would it? The question, our criticism of Tim Walz back in 2020 is not that he was making Trump mad. It's not that he was doing things Trump didn't want. That's not the criticism. I frankly don't care how Trump felt about it at the time. Doesn't matter. The criticism is entirely that he allowed his community to burn. Whatever Trump said about it days after the fact, completely irrelevant. And that does not answer the question for Tim Walz, which is, why did you do that? Why did you allow that? Why did you delay the deployment of the National Guard? When you knew that there were rioters burning a police station, why didn't you immediately send the National Guard in? Why was your wife sitting by the window enjoying the smell of burning neighborhoods? And to respond to that by saying, well, but Trump said it was good. I don't care. I don't care what he said. I don't care if he showed up and gave you a hug and and baked you some cookies to congratulate you. Makes no difference. And as far as Trump's response, we also know the other thing about Trump is that, like, this is how he operates. That if you're not doing what he wants, then he's going to come at you hard. But once you start doing what he wants, then he's going to be very complimentary and very nice and probably more complimentary than he needs to be. So that's what happened here. In the first few days, Walz was not sending in the National Guard. He wasn't doing anything. And then he sort of started responding and he was doing what Trump wanted. And so then Trump's like, oh, you're a great guy now. This is just how Trump operates. This is how we all know that. This is how he operates. But it provides the left an opportunity here to try to change the subject, which is all it is. This is just changing the subject completely. And I'd be fine with saying, it's like, okay, all right, so let's just, even though, we could respond by parsing Trump's words, that, he wasn't referring to that. What if I said, okay, he was totally wrong. Like, what he said, it was a totally inaccurate assessment. Fine. So then are you willing to admit then that Walz's response was terrible? And Trump's to blame for not pointing that out in the phone call? Because if I'm willing to take that compromise, but I don't think they will on the left. When you're running a business, time is money. That's why I'm so excited to introduce you to Ramp. If you're a finance professional looking for a better way to maximize productivity and cut wasteful spending, well, then Ramp could be for you. Ramp is a corporate card and spend management software designed to help you save time and money back in your pocket. With Ramp, you can issue cards to every employee with limits and restrictions. You can also stop wasting time at the end of every month by automating your expense reporting. Ramp's accounting software automatically collects receipts and categorizes your expenses in real time so you don't have to. You'll never have to chase down a receipt again, and your employees will no longer spend hours submitting expense reports. The time you'll save each month on employee expenses will allow you to close your books 8 times faster. Ramp is so easy to use. Get started in less than 15 minutes, whether you have 5 employees or 5,000. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/Walsh, ramp.com/Walsh. That's ramp.com/Walsh. Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank. Members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. Well, you probably remember our incredible film, What is a Woman? Well, I got the same group of white guys back together to ask America's next burning question. Am I Racist? Is coming to theaters this September. I went deep undercover into the cesspool of DEI insanity. I rubbed elbows with professional race hustlers and diversity con artists. Some would say I did the work. And now it's your turn. But the date I need you to remember right now is Thursday, August 15th. That's when pre-sale tickets go on sale. With your help, we're going to stick it to the woke mob, 1 ticket at a time. But you got to get the pre-sale tickets. All the details can be found, and as well as the trailer, at amiracist.com. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. You know, I haven't been paying attention to the Olympics at all. Admittedly, I've never been much of an Olympics fan, but any chance that I may have tried to pay attention and vaguely care this year went out the window when they kicked things off with sacrilege and drag queens. Followed it up, of course, with their next trick, which was the horrific and still ongoing spectacle of male boxers fighting females. This was already the wokest Olympics of all time, so it wouldn't be complete, I guess, without some good old-fashioned race baiting. This week, the media has been celebrating what they claim is an historic occasion at the Olympics. Here's People.com with the headline, Simone Biles, Rebecca Andrade, and Jordan Childs celebrate first all-black gymnastics podium. Super exciting. The gymnasts made Olympic history when Andrade of Brazil won gold, Biles came in second for silver, and Childs took home bronze in the floor final. Yes, the gymnastics event wrapped up with 3 black women winning gold, silver, and bronze. It was apparently the first time that 3 women with that particular shade of skin happened to all get into onto the podium in gymnastics in that event. Indeed, something to celebrate. I mean, it's high time that the athletic achievements of black people are acknowledged. Black people have not been recognized for their prowess in the world of sports, I think, and now that's finally changed. Here are Simone Biles and Jordan Childs after the event talking about the historic accomplishment. Watch.
There was quite a moment that's going a bit viral on social media when Rebecca gets the gold and you two decide to show your respect. It was quite moving. Talked to some Brazilian people who were quite moved by it. Yeah. What gave you the idea? Was it just spontaneous? And tell us what you did.
No, she's so amazing. She's queen. And first, it was an all-black podium, so that was super exciting for us. But then Jordan was like, should we bow to her? And I was like, absolutely. So we're like, are we going to do it now? And then that's why we did it. But she's such an excitement to watch. And then all the fans in the crowd always cheering for her. So it was just the right thing to do. She's queen.
Yeah,
she's so good.
To go off of what she was saying, you know, she's an icon, a legend herself. So I feel like being recognized is what everybody should do when it comes to somebody who's put in the work, put in the dedication. So yeah, in that moment, I was like, you know what? First off, again, yes, it was an all-black podium. Second off, why don't we just give her flowers? She's given, you know, not only has she given Simone her flowers, but a lot of us in the United States our flowers as well. So giving it back is what makes it so beautiful. So I felt like it was needed.
Now, there was already enough here to earn a spot in the daily cancellation. I will always object to racial double standards. I have come to expect them. I'm not shocked by them, but I still object to them. And there's certainly a massive, glaring one in this case. We all know what would happen if Olympic athletes celebrated and gloated over an all-white podium. We know the reaction if the silver and bronze medal were won by white people and they bowed to the gold medalist in part to celebrate the fact that he was also white. Like, we all know how that would go. You can't claim that it'd be different because the all-white podiums are more commonplace. In many events, that's not the case at all. I don't know how long it's been since there was an all-white podium in the 100-meter race, for instance, but I'm confident that it's been a very long time. In fact, if there was an all-white podium in the 100-meter race, it would be very notable. I think it would be, but you would not be allowed to make note of it unless you were noting it in a negative way, in a disappointed way. You can lament that something is all white, But you may never be happy that it's all white. That's the rule. And it's a rule that I do not recognize because it's hypocritical and arbitrary. If we would say that Olympians were racist for cheering an all-white podium, we must say the same about Olympians cheering an all-black podium. Those are the rules, which means I'm afraid that Simone Biles is a horrendous bigot. She is a racist and she owes America an apology. Those are the rules. And she should be expected to follow them the same way that she'd be expected to follow them if she was white. That's all that needs to be said, I thought. It's all I was planning to say. The only point that I really wanted to make. But then I found out that the all-black podium thing is quite a bit worse than I thought. Now, I didn't know this because, again, I'm not watching, but it turns out that the bigger problem is not that they're celebrating the all-black podium, but rather how the all-black podium came about in the first place. Wouldn't you know it, 3 black women were awarded gold, silver, and bronze, but 3 black women did not earn gold, silver, and bronze. The woke Olympics, true to its new name, gave us this historic moment by stealing a medal from a white woman. So I'm going to read a fair amount from this report in Forbes. I have to read it because I don't follow gymnastics or understand how the scoring works, so I'll just let them explain. Reading out, the final event in Olympic gymnastics came with a side of drama. After Simone Biles flew out a tumbling pass and conceded the top spot to Rebecca Andrade, teammate Jordan Childs saw an opportunity to secure her first individual medal. At first, she didn't get it, but then she did. Last up, Childs would need a 13.7 to surpass Romania's Ana Barbasou, who was also tied with her fellow countrywoman Sabrina Voinea. Though Childs hit her routine, she appeared to finish short on leap, potentially downgrading the scoring of her exercise. The judges caught the under rotation, and Childs' difficulty score was downgraded from 5.9 to 5.8, a 0.1 difference. Small but consequential. Childs posted a 13.666, falling to 5th and failing to unseat Barbasou for bronze. For a minute, it seemed that there would be no individual medal for Jordan Childs. So that's the setup. I understood some of that. But next, Team USA went to the judges, and they disputed the way that it was scored. So that's what it comes down to. And the judges accepted their inquiry and raised Childs' score, which brought her from 5th place to 3rd. So the Romanian gymnast, Ana Barbasou, thought that she was about to stand on the podium and receive her bronze medal, but in just a few minutes, it was ripped away from her. Okay? But so that, you think like, well, that's the controversy, but that's not even the real controversy here. Forbes continues, quote, in the midst of the controversy surrounding the robbery of Ana Barbasou, fans determined that the other Romanian athlete, Sabrina Mănăsesă Voinea, was the one who was wronged. During competition, the judges deducted 0.1 from her routine due to her stepping out of bounds. In the re-air of the final Monday evening, NBC commentator John Roethlisberger reported that Mănăsesă Voinea visibly remained inside the floor area. Almost instantly, Team Romania's indignation multiplied. Okay, now, again, I'm not a gymnastics expert, but anyone, expert or not, can look at the replay and clearly see, plain as day, that she absolutely did not step out of bounds. It's not even particularly close. You can just look and see she didn't step on the out of bounds part. And they docked her for stepping out of bounds, but she didn't. Without that penalty, she would have finished 3rd. So, you could argue that 2 different white women were pushed to the side to give the Olympics its black podium moment. But certainly without question, we can say that at least one white woman was. Now, that is not even in dispute now. That's a fact we know. That should not have been an all-black podium. Should have been 2 black people and a white woman. The only question is, was it intentional? Was this deliberately done for reasons of wokeness? Now, I have no idea. Quite possibly no. Quite possibly yes. But that doesn't even really matter all that much. What matters is that, whether on purpose or accidentally, that bronze medal was taken from the person who actually earned it. It was not awarded based on merit. So this truly is, in more ways than I initially realized, the DEI Olympics. And the DEI Olympics are, needless to say, completely and totally today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow. Godspeed.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gonna say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of shit.
White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist? Hi, Robin.
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
In theaters September 13th, rated PG-13.